So I'm going to lay out some scenarios for y'all this morning. So we're going to talk about two friends. So your best friend Jill, who has been the educational coordinator for over 10 years at your church. She has been responsible for the adult, the youth, the children's Sunday schools. She has done an excellent job. She has wonderful organizational skills. Everything runs smooth as butter. She is certainly administratively gifted. Husband has a wonderful job. He's an engineer. She has a beautiful home. This allows her freedom to pour into the church. She dresses beautifully. Every hair is in place. Her home is gorgeous. And you're really her only close friend. But you chalk it to she's just really busy. And you feel blessed to be one of her only friends. But you have noticed that there seems to be some negative expressions when you bring her name up at church in different activities. And recently, a new position was created at the church, Community Outreach Coordinator. And she applied for it. She needed a change, she thinks. And it would give her an opportunity to represent the church. After all, she dresses so well. And again, her home is in Waterwood. But another lady named Joan also applied and had only been in the church 7 years and was a greeter. And they had made her over the hospitality committee. And again, she's done a really good job at that. And lo and behold, Joan got the position.
She lived in Roselawn.
Jill calls you upset. She's crying. How could Pastor have done this? And the board, how could they have done this to me? After all, I have painstakingly I built the educational department. I've done all the scheduling. I made sure all the projectors were in place. I made sure all the child care was there. I've done it for 10 years, and I've had to handle all many kind of problems. I've got the handouts. How many handouts have I copied at the copier? 10 years. I've done this for 10 years. And do you know, Joan, the hospitality coordinator, what's up with that? And she's supposed to go into the community and represent our church? Have you seen her hairstyle? It hadn't changed in 7 years. And again, you know where she lives. She lives in Roselawn. Hello? And for God's sake, she's a greeter. What a poor representation of our church. And our church is the second largest in our city. I should be the one. I should be the one representing us, calling on other churches, business, civic organizations. They just want to keep me stuck in this position. That's what it is. Can you see how easily you could be so close to Jill? After all these years of friendship, you could become offended with this, and you could come into agreement. You've seen her sacrifice in the last 10 years. And you're like, yeah, how did the church do that? But the truth is, Jill is task-oriented. She's not people-oriented. She's full of arrogance and full of pride. What does God hate? Haughty. One of the things God hates. And Joan loves people. She's down to earth. She's full of the fruit of the Spirit. And pastor and the board had made the decision that they would much rather her represent the love of Jesus in their church than Jill. So what you didn't know behind the scenes for the last 10 years, that Jill had offended many people in her arrogance. She has done a great job in her task, but she's not about people. She is about the job at hand. And often she's used intimidation and control to get things done. But because you're so close to her, you can't see the forest for the trees. And then there have been times that you were frustrated because when you have conversations, it's most of the time about her. It's not about you. But you just chalk that up. It's just her. And you certainly don't measure up to her financial status. But over the years, she has done some really great things, like you didn't have the money to send your son to that expensive church camp, and she paid for it and sponsored him. And after all, she got a brand new wardrobe this fall, and she gave you all her hand-me-downs. Man, they're nice. So there's two ways that you could have handled this. If you agree, you become offended and division begins. And it begins against your church and your pastor. And then what happens? You believe the lie for truth because of your friendship and you're so closely involved. If you were to take a step back and you would choose to trust your pastor and his decision, and you pray to see things from God's perspective, then you would begin to see possibly her arrogance and why she's not the one out represent Jesus and the church. So your agreement with her could rob you of being engaged in your church. Instead, you have backed up because the women's retreat's coming up and she's not going. And if you were to go, you'd make her mad. And then what about the potluck leaders? Well, you can't go to that because you're going to make her mad. And yet God had set up for you some really awesome relationships he wanted to form and a greater positioning for you. So in your friendship with this woman, you've really opened the door to division, and God wanted to bless you in some ways that you have chosen another path. Now here's the second scenario. Your coworker comes to you, and both of you are so sympathetic about your coworker, Beth, and y'all have been praying for her. Her husband of 12 years left her and ran off with her best friend and left her with 4 small children. And so besides working here 8 to 5, she now is working a second job. Her soon-to-be ex depleted their savings when he ran off, left her with nothing, and she has no way to make ends meet. So lately she's been falling asleep at her desk, so you've been doing her job for her. It seems to be almost a daily thing, which has caused you to get behind, and you've got reports that are due. The office manager questions you if there's a problem with Beth doing her job, and you deny it because, after all, love covers a multitude of sin. She just needs grace and mercy, and she's in a really bad place in her life. Your coworker shares with you what she's done. You either agree with her and come into the lie to authority, which will make you also an accomplice, or you choose to not agree, be honest, correct her, tell her to be honest with the boss, and perhaps the office could take up a love offering and help her in this financial crisis, or maybe she's up for a raise. And by telling your boss or your office manager that Beth could be in for a raise and not have to work a second job. But the other thing is, or you keep the secret, but you can't wait to coffee break because you can't wait to tell Sue, your coworker, how your friend just lied to the boss. Guess what? In both those scenarios, God hates a lying tongue. I don't care what the reasoning is, it's a lying tongue. She should have said she's struggling and done it with compassion and love. Mm-hmm. And then what about the second one? God hates feet that run swiftly into evil. She couldn't wait to coffee break. Mm-hmm. But you're praying for Beth. You're earnestly praying. Can you see the justification, rationalization that happens? All right, so here's the third scenario. Sam, your brother-in-law, comes over to visit for the 4th of July. He was one of the 50 that just got laid off, and you were blessed to be one of the 20 that got kept at the plant. He tells you that he went fishing with Lee and Dawn, and they were talking smack about you. How unfair it was that you still had a job. and how much harder they worked than you. After all, you were off for several months with back surgery. And there were just a few months less of hiring in, and so seniority, it should be who works the hardest that gets to keep their job. After all, you got hired because your dad and your brother worked there, and they got hired because of their own merits. Sam says that he took up for you, stood his ground. Man, you shouldn't let them talk about you like that. Now, if you agree with Sam, a man who stirs up dissension among his brothers, so you call Lee and Don and you give them a piece of your mind. You are angry. Not only are they angry now, but they share what Sam said, because Sam said, he stood up for you. And they tell you that Sam's the one that started the whole conversation. So, now you're even more angry at Sam and has brought division. You're not wanting to go to your niece's birthday party that's coming up, which is in turn will hurt your sister. And then the division goes from the plant, now it's into your house. Truth is, Sam should have been corrected when he first started talking. He should have been shut down. That you didn't want to hear the nonsense. You didn't want to ruin the day, the family time. I don't want to hear it. Let's stop this. And of course, if Sam did that now, Sam's done it in the past. So you're as grateful, you're still working, and will continue to pray for them to get jobs. They're at a vulnerable place, and you want to bless them. But allowing their jealous words to get into your mind, then down into your heart, just robbed you of your peace, your celebration of July the 4th, and went into a source of further strife and division. It robbed you completely. And that was the enemy's plan, wasn't it? Yeah. The other area I want to hit, these are just things that can happen. Mm-hmm. And we've got to be quick on our feet. We've got to discern where the enemy's working. And if we're quick to shut it down and we don't give ear to it, then it don't get from here to here.